Joanna and I didn't just meet in Hawaii. We spent a good deal of time together. I fell in love with your daughter.
Back in 1967, one movie turned a simple dinner into pure tension and had a whole country feeling uneasy, and somehow still walked away with 2 Oscars. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner dropped through Columbia Pictures and shook things up in a big way. The story follows Joanna Drayton, played by Katharine, who casually pulls up to her parents' house and drops major news. She's getting married. No warning, no build-up, just straight to it. And her parents, played by Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn, are left trying to keep up. Now here's where it really hits. Her fiancé is Dr. John P. Prentice, played by Sidney Poitier. He's smart, respected, smooth, the full package, but also not who her very open-minded parents ever thought they'd actually have to accept in real life. That dinner table, yeah, it turns into a pressure cooker fast. And the cast didn't play around either, with strong performances from Isabel Sanford, Cecil Kellaway, and B. Richards adding even more intensity. Today we're breaking down 10 wild facts about Guess Who's Coming to Dinner that most people never even heard about. And trust this, number 10 hits different because Katharine Hepburn's tears in that final scene were 100% real, and the reason behind it makes everything way more emotional. Before we jump in, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell so more classic film fans can catch this. Now let's get into it. Because that dinner, yeah, it got real fast. Number 1, the film Hollywood was too scared to touch. By 1966, Stanley Kramer already had a reputation for making movies others wouldn't go near. Racism, nuclear war, fascism, not exactly light topics. Studios knew his style, and Columbia Pictures wasn't surprised by his bold choices. But even with all that, this project, it almost didn't happen at all. The issue was interracial marriage, and back then, that topic made studios freeze up fast. Sidney Poitier even said no producer and no director could secure funding for it. And it didn't stop there. There was real fear that theaters across the country wouldn't even show the film. This wasn't about people not understanding the topic. Gandhi, they understood it clearly and chose to stay far away from it. Hollywood had basically ignored it since the silent film era, like it didn't exist. But Kramer didn't back down. Before filming even started, Poitier looked him straight in the eye and asked if he really believed the country was ready for a story like this. Kramer didn't sugarcoat it. He said no. Still, he pushed forward anyway, knowing exactly how risky it was. Even Columbia Pictures had doubts the whole time. The same studio that hesitated to back it ended up releasing one of the most talked about and respected films of that decade. Hollywood's fear turned into Kramer's defining moment, and he proved that taking risks could shake the entire industry. Number 2, 3 Hollywood legends said yes, without even seeing a script. Stanley Kramer walked in with nothing but a pitch for Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, no finished screenplay, no full dialogue, just the idea. And somehow Spencer Tracy, Katharine Hepburn, and Sidney Poitier all agreed on the spot. In any era, that kind of move would make agents panic instantly. Tracy didn't hesitate because he had worked with Kramer before and trusted his vision completely. Hepburn, on the other hand, had never worked with Kramer at all. She signed on out of loyalty to Tracy and because she believed the story actually mattered. That alone says a lot about how serious this project felt from the start. Then came Sidney Poitier, and this is where it gets even crazier. Kramer approached him with barely more than a concept, but added one major detail. Tracy and Hepburn were already in. That was enough to grab Poitier's attention fast. His response came immediately, saying he wasn't even sure the studio would pull it off, but he was all in anyway. No hesitation, no script, just trust. Think about how wild that is for a second. These weren't up-and-coming actors hoping for a break. These were top-tier stars with massive influence, people who could demand full scripts, rewrites, casting control, and anything else they wanted before even considering a role. They had the power to shape entire productions, but they didn't use it here. Instead, all 3 trusted Kramer's vision based on almost nothing on paper. They committed their names, their time, and their reputations to a film that barely existed outside of Kramer's pitch, and somehow that risk paid off in a huge way. The movie became one of the most respected and talked about films of its time, proving Kramer knew exactly what he was building, even before anyone else could read it. Number 3, their love story was actually illegal in 17 states. When Guess Who's Coming to Dinner hit theaters in 1967, the central relationship, a white woman and a black man planning to get married, wasn't just controversial. It was a crime in large parts of the country. Let that sink in for a second. Interracial marriage was still banned in 17 US states, which means audiences were sitting in theaters watching a love story that could have gotten the characters arrested in real life. That puts Columbia Pictures in a wild position. They were promoting a film where the happy ending wasn't just emotional, it was legally risky depending on where you lived. Imagine selling tickets to a story that, in some states, could land the main couple in court instead of on a honeymoon. That's not just bold filmmaking, that's stepping straight into a legal storm. Sidney Poitier and Katharine Houghton played two people deeply in love, but outside the screen there were actual laws targeting relationships just like theirs. 17 state governments had rules ready to punish couples like the ones audiences were rooting for, and still people showed up, bought popcorn, and watched it all unfold right in front of them. What makes it even more intense is that some viewers were sitting in those theaters in states where, if they walked out and lived that same life, they could face serious consequences. That dinner table tension everyone felt, it wasn't just acting, it mirrored a real ongoing national conflict playing out in courts and communities at that exact moment. Most love stories just ask you to cheer for two people to be together. This one pushed audiences way further. It asked them to question laws, challenge norms, and root for a relationship while the country was still arguing over whether it should even be allowed. Number 4, making this movie came with real death threats. Stanley Kramer knew exactly what he was stepping into when he decided to make Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. He understood that a lot of people wouldn't just disagree, they'd be furious. He knew the topic would put a target on everyone involved, and still he showed up on set and made the film anyway. And that backlash, it came in hard. After the movie hit theaters, Kramer started receiving actual death threats, serious ones, just for putting an interracial relationship on screen. Katharine Houghton wasn't spared either. She revealed, "After the movie came out, I began to get hate mail and death threats. The character she played was fictional, but the people sending those messages, very real and very aggressive." A major trigger for all that outrage was one specific moment, the interracial kiss in the film. It only lasted a few seconds, but that was enough to set people off and flood Kramer's mailbox for months. That one scene pushed boundaries in a way that a lot of audiences at the time simply couldn't handle. The wild part is, none of this surprised Kramer. He predicted the backlash before filming even started. He knew exactly how people would react, and he chose to move forward anyway. That's what makes this even more intense. He didn't just take a risk, he knowingly walked straight into the storm and refused to back down. Number 5, the 5-week script that turned into a massive payday. William Rose and Stanley Kramer pulled off something that sounds almost unreal. They wrote the screenplay for Guess Who's Coming to Dinner in just 5 weeks. Most writers spend longer than that, just going back and forth on ideas, but Rose came in, delivered fast, and made it count. Now here's where it gets serious. Kramer paid Rose $200,000 total, $50,000 for the story and $150,000 for the script. Back in the 1960s, that kind of money for one writer had studio accountants stressed out. Reports at the time even said it might have been the highest per week writing fee in Hollywood during that era. That's not just a paycheck, that's a statement. But the real move? The profit share. Rose didn't just take the upfront money. He secured a piece of the film's net profits too, and that's where things really took off. The movie was made on a $4 million budget and ended up pulling in around $57 million. That quiet little clause turned into a financial power play that most writers could only dream about. Kramer already knew what Rose could do under pressure. They had worked together before on It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. So this wasn't luck. It was calculated trust. And it paid off in a huge way. Then came awards season, and Rose walked up and grabbed the Oscar for Best Original Screenplay. 5 weeks of work, a massive upfront deal, and long-term money rolling in behind the scenes. That's the kind of deal that changed how people looked at screenwriting contracts, and it still gets talked about for a reason. Number 6, Hepburn's daughter was actually family for real. The actress playing Joanna, the one who walks in and drops that shocking dinner announcement, wasn't just cast to look the part. Katharine Houghton was Katharine Hepburn's real-life niece. Same family, same bloodline, and yeah, that resemblance people noticed, that wasn't movie magic, that was genetics doing its thing. This whole thing started when Stanley Kramer said he needed someone believable as the daughter of Hepburn and Spencer Tracy. Hepburn didn't hesitate, she already had someone in mind. But don't get it twisted, this wasn't just a favor situation where a famous aunt opens doors and that's it. Houghton still had to audition, and Kramer picked her because she genuinely impressed him. He even said she felt exactly like what Hepburn's daughter would be, which, given the situation, is about as perfect as it gets. Now here's a moment that says everything about Hepburn's personality. On the very first day of filming, she showed up. Even though she wasn't scheduled to shoot anything, she walked onto set and told everyone, "In case my niece drops dead from the excitement, I'm here and I know all her lines too." That's bold, that's protective, and honestly, that's classic Hepburn energy right there. For Houghton, this wasn't just another role, it was her first major film ever. Imagine stepping into Hollywood for the first time, acting alongside your legendary aunt, with Spencer Tracy right there, and the entire movie carrying heavy cultural tension. That's pressure most people wouldn't even sign up for. A lot of actors might have backed out or made excuses, but she didn't. She showed up and handled it. And that real-life connection, you can actually feel it in the film. The way Hepburn and Houghton interact in those family scenes hits differently. It feels natural, a little sharper, a little more real, because underneath the script, it wasn't just acting, it was two people who actually knew each other, bringing that energy straight onto the screen. Number 7, Sidney Poitier had an Oscar and still got starstruck. By the time he stepped onto the set of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, Poitier was already a powerhouse actor with an Academy Award from Lilies of the Field. This wasn't someone new to the game. He was respected, experienced, and known for delivering under pressure. But even at that level, something unexpected happened. During one intense scene, Poitier just couldn't lock in. The lines felt off, the timing wasn't hitting, and the whole rhythm of the moment wasn't coming together. And instead of pushing through, he made a surprising call. He turned to Stanley Kramer and asked for Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn to step off set. Kramer agreed, and just like that, two of the biggest legends in Hollywood quietly walked away. Poitier then performed the entire scene facing two empty chairs, with a dialogue coach reading lines from off-camera. And suddenly, everything clicked. The performance came alive in a way it hadn't before. This wasn't about weakness, it was about presence. Tracy and Hepburn carried so much weight, so much history, that even standing near them could shift the energy in the room. Their combined legacy was that powerful. Even Poitier needed space to fully tap into the moment without that pressure right in front of him, and it worked. The scene came together perfectly, proving that sometimes the strongest move isn't pushing harder, it's changing the environment completely. Meanwhile, just off set, two screen legends were likely waiting to step right back in like nothing happened. Number 8, a single joke got pulled in. The middle of the movie's run. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner originally had a quick throwaway line referencing Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and at first it landed exactly how it was meant to. Audiences laughed, the scene moved on, and nobody thought twice about it. The line came from Tilly, the Drayton's housekeeper, played by Isabel Sanford, who sarcastically replied, "They, the Reverend Martin Luther King," when told another guest was showing up. Simple joke, quick reaction, done. But then everything changed. Fast. On April 4th, 1968, Dr. King was assassinated, and that one line instantly stopped being funny. The exact same moment that had been getting easy laughs for months suddenly felt heavy, uncomfortable, and completely out of place. Audiences weren't reacting the same way anymore, and you could feel the shift in the room. Now Columbia Pictures had a serious problem on their hands. The film was still playing in theaters across the country, so they had to decide quickly: leave the scene in and risk hitting audiences with that emotional collision, or take it out entirely. No long debates, no dragging it out. They made the call and cut it. And they didn't just suggest it, they took action. Columbia reached out directly to theater owners and told them to remove the scene from their film prints. They even gave step-by-step instructions on how to physically cut it out. This wasn't a small tweak. This was a nationwide hands-on removal happening in real time. By August 1968, most versions of the film no longer included that line at all. It was like it had been erased from the movie's DNA during that period. Later on, once time had passed, the line was restored in future prints and preserved in home releases, separated from the immediate weight of that moment in history. For a few intense months, though, something rare happened. The film industry actually reacted in real time to the world changing around it. Columbia recognized that reality had overtaken the script and moved fast without waiting around for endless approvals. Hey, if you're still locked in, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. This movie isn't just powerful on screen. The behind-the-scenes stories are just as wild, and we're not even close to done yet. Now let's keep this dinner going, because things only get deeper from here. Number 9, Hepburn secretly placed a bronze Tracy right on set. Katharine Hepburn wasn't just a legendary actress, she was also a seriously talented sculptor. And during the filming of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, those two sides of her came together in a way that most people completely missed. Hepburn had created a small 3-inch bronze bust of Spencer Tracy with her own hands. This wasn't just some random piece, it meant everything to her. She kept it by her bedside, traveled with it, and treated it like one of her most personal belongings. So, when they started filming what would become their final movie together, she did something subtle but powerful. That tiny sculpture ended up on set, placed quietly on a bookshelf behind the desk during a scene where Sidney Poitier's character is on the phone. No big reveal, no camera zoom, nothing to point it out. It just sits there in the background, completely unnoticed by most viewers, and that's what makes it hit even harder. This was Tracy's likeness, crafted by Hepburn herself, hidden inside the last film they would ever share, a private tribute tucked into a public moment. After Hepburn passed away, the sculpture went up for auction at Sotheby's. Experts estimated it would sell for around $3,000 to $5,000, but that didn't even come close. It ended up going for $316,000, and the room reportedly erupted with cheers. Now that you know it's there, it's impossible not to look for it. That one small detail can completely shift how you watch the scene, turning it into something way more personal than it first appears. Number 10, no insurance company would even go near Spencer Tracy. By the time Guess Who's Coming to Dinner was filming, Tracy's health was so fragile that getting him insured became almost impossible. Normal coverage completely off the table. Things got so tense that there was a real moment where the entire production looked like it could collapse before a single scene even rolled. Stanley Kramer eventually found one insurer willing to take the risk, but it came at a heavy price tag of $71,000 just to get Columbia across the finish line, and even that wasn't enough on its own. Kramer and Katharine Hepburn stepped in and did something almost unheard of. They placed their full salaries into escrow. That meant if Tracy couldn't complete the film, their money would automatically go to the studio to cover reshoots with another actor. 2 layers of financial backup stacked on top of each other just to keep cameras rolling. And here's the wild part, Tracy, by most accounts, never knew any of it. Kramer and Hepburn kept it completely quiet because the last thing they wanted was to add pressure to a man already fighting through serious illness. That kind of silent protection says everything about how seriously they treated him in the project. Behind the scenes, Kramer even ran 2 full shooting plans at the same time. One version built entirely around Tracy, and another ready to activate if he couldn't continue. Every day, Tracy showed up on set. That backup plan stayed untouched in the drawer, locked away and thankfully never needed. And somehow, against all odds, Tracy made it through every scene. A finish like that wasn't just lucky, it was the only outcome anyone was really hoping for. So that's 10 wild behind-the-scenes facts about Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Which one hit you the hardest? Drop it in the comments below because some of these moments are straight up unbelievable. If you know someone who loves classic films like this, send it their way and keep the conversation going. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And until next time, this is $21.